And Mark, you want to look a bit more, or at least James Roguski has been given some commentary on Trump leaving the World Health Organization.
Yeah, good day, Patrick and Mike and listeners. The issue here in the general sense is looking at what Trump says he's going to do and then looking at the actual details. And of course, we're looking for relative consistency. And on Trump wanting to get the U.S. out of the World Health Organization, this is a recent AFP dispatch I wrote that's published only in hard copy. And on the surface, it appears, fairly sincere. There's this basic thrust that the World Health Organization is a tyrant or would be global tyrant and would be autocratic. And so, hey, let's get out of it. And on this slide, I'll note some things that are important. Let's put that up on the screen. Longtime WHO watchdog James Roguski lives in LA. Of course, he's been interviewed on UK Column, has been following every move of the WHO for over 3 years. He closely examined the WHO executive order, pardon the typo there, President Trump signed. Roguski said that a key word in the executive order is intends. And Section 2 of that EO says the United States intends to withdraw from the WHO. The Biden presidential letter to the Secretary General of the UN signed on 20 January 2021 that retracted the U.S.'s July 6, 2020 notification of withdrawal is revoked. Then it goes on, regarding Section 2's last part, Roguski responded, revoking Biden's revocation of Trump's 2020 exit WHO action is not ideal. Roguski added, it'd be nice if a new clear letter could be sent directly to the WHO. And we'll go on and pick it apart a little bit more. Another important part of the WHO EO, the executive order in Section 4 states, while withdrawal is in progress, the Secretary of State, and then I added emphasis, will cease negotiations on the WHO pandemic agreement and the amendments to the international health regulations, and actions taken to effectuate such agreement and amendments will have no binding force on the U.S. But Roguski adroitly responded, there are no active negotiations regarding the international health regulations going on at this time. It's not happening, but the EO implies it is. This needs to be followed up with an official letter, Roguski says, revoking the amendments that were adopted by the World Health Assembly on June 1st, 2024, but that hasn't happened yet, as well as a revocation and notice to the world that the United States is also exiting the international health regulations altogether. So what Roguski is seeing, guys, is a lack of resoluteness in the wording in the executive order to actually get out of the WHO. It sounds tentative, the word intends, things like that. So the question very quickly becomes, is this just for show, or is it some tactical maneuver that Trump will get benefits out of later politically? As Patrick indicated, they write straight with crooked lines in D.C. There's a lot of maneuvering and jockeying that goes on due to the politics of the place and the corruption in the swamp. Anyway, we also have another matter, and that's the education department, which has long been a problem. Back in the 1950s, Rudolf Fleisch wrote a book called Why Johnny Can't Read, and that was due to the adoption of whole language, whole word techniques to teach kids how to read, which was a total failure rather than phonics. The alphabet is a phonetic system. It's based on sounding things out, so you have to teach reading through phonics. You learn to read so you can read to learn. That's the way education really advances. Anyway, this is another AFP dispatch. Trump looks to counter extreme left-wing bias at the education department. And this is true. He sees a lot of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies going on across the federal government, of course, but especially someplace like the Department of Education or DOE. And he wants to root that out. And that, of course, is welcome in many quarters. I'll go ahead and put this slide up. Ever since Donald Trump signed a flurry of executive orders on his first day in office, January 20, the Department of Education has been carrying out significant education-related changes. And that's the thing here. So far, there's no strong indication that they're going to get rid of the DOE. Rather, the DOE itself is calling out the DEI policies and wanting to root those out. So the DOE, Department of Education, is becoming activist here, acting more in concert with what Trump wants to do, rather than the Department of Education for now even being on the chopping block. That doesn't appear to be a current reality. Incidentally, the Department of Education has been around technically since 1867, just after the Civil War. It was reduced to a very small department after that. But then in the 1970s, during the Carter years, it was elevated to cabinet level status. Many true blue conservatives and Reaganites have been saying for years that they've been wanting to get rid of the Department of Education altogether. Nobody seems to be willing to pull the trigger. So then the question becomes, will Donald Trump finally, after all these years, technically going back to just after the Civil War, will he finally pull the trigger and get rid of the DOE? Well, anyway, we'll move on and show that for now, again, the Department of Education is taking an active role in carrying out Trump's policies rather than fading into the sunset. And here's some of the things that the DOE itself has been tasked to do. For instance, dissolve the Department of Education's own Diversity Inclusion Council. So it's dissolving one of its own councils, effective immediately. And Trump rescinded an Obama executive order that guided that council. And Trump issued a new EO, ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. Also, we can go down that same list. Keep that up there if you would. Cancel ongoing DEI training and service contracts, which total over $2.6 million. The Department of Education would also place its career staff tasked with implementing the previous administration's DEI initiatives. They'd put them on paid administrative leave. And among other things, the Department of Education would remove more than 200 web pages from its own website that housed DEI resources and promoted harmful ideological programs. So the Department of Education is sort of making itself lean and mean, stripping a lot of DEI stuff out of its database, things like that. But for now, the Department of Education itself doesn't appear to be sunsetting. Rather, it's taking an active role in getting the DEI out of the system. So that, combined with Roguski's take on the WHO, shows that there's a lot of nuance involved. And at least for the time being, the World Health Organization and the Department of Education are not imminently threatened with being, in one case, dissolved, in the other case, the U.S. pulling out. It might take time. We'll see what happens. Is this double talk? Is this double speak? I don't know. But it's definitely the reality of Washington politics, as Patrick alluded to. Yeah, so back to you guys. Maybe you have some comments.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, it looks like, he's done a lot to come in with a big bang with lots of executive orders, but maybe the wording of them leaves plenty of wriggle room for him not to follow through at the end of the day.
Look, all these departments, and by the way, if there was talking to the Reagan administration about getting rid of the Department of Education. So these are tools for any government coming in, and you can see the department itself, out of survival mode, has adopted all of Trump's policies because they don't want to be on the chopping block. But at the end of the day, it's a tool. And while they're removing all the radical left material out of the Department of Education, if Trump will put his people in, or these Republicans will put their people in, they could add things to the Department of Education to replace DEI, like a prayer and school board, a biblical council. They could bring in Mike Huckabee to review the Israeli Holocaust remembrance education curriculum for every student in America. It could easily swing the other way. And that's something I'd be very concerned about. I personally think, as Mark probably does, get rid of the whole department. It's a huge waste of money, along with a bunch of other federal departments. I'm not hearing that from Doge.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say,
unfortunately,
we'll sort that out. No?
So the psyop that is Doge, we can get into it another time. Yeah. But we're not hearing any of that. Like, let's just get rid of the Department of Homeland Security that didn't exist before 2002. What does it do? Nothing. What does it cost? Hundreds of billions. It's just one example.
Mark.
Yeah, well, the Department of Education, like so many things, the federal government is not authorized to be involved in education under the Constitution. A clean break with it would be best. I mean, if states want to put prayer in schools on a state by state or localized basis, that would be their business under the 10th Amendment. But the Department of Education, Charlotte Iserbeet, one of the longtime critics of the DOE, and she worked inside the Beast and others. She's the late Charlotte Iserbeet. She passed away. She explained in very detailed terms why the Department of Education really isn't reformable and it really should be shut down.
Thank you for that, Mark. Okay, now look, we do have a technical issue, so I'm going to work my way through this as quickly as best we can today without disrupting the program too much. But anyway, if you like what the UK Column does, you'd like to support us, please go to support.ukcolumn.org. There are options to help us out there. You can make a donation. Now, please remember that if you do make a donation, rather than joining as a member, that doesn't give you access to the membership site and the UK Column News Extra and so on. So do join as a member if you'd like access to that. There are various membership levels there. You can pick something up at the UK Column shop. That helps us out greatly and helps get the word out about us. If you are into health products and you'd like to pick something up from clivedecarl.com, you can do so through here as well, and we'll get a small proportion of the sale price. Now, if you can't do any of that, that's absolutely fine, but at least share the material if you possibly can on the various platforms, because we do continue to suffer from censorship regime and so on. Now, yesterday, the interview with Raja Mia about Asian grooming gangs went out. It is on the website now if you'd like to go and look at it. It is a fantastic interview. Look at it if you possibly can. And we do have let me just see here. We do have a bit of an exclusive here, I suppose, for Monday's news program. In fact, it's more than suppose. So an unreliable witness. So Brian has a little bit of video here to show if this thing will even nearly work. Here we go. Let's have a listen to this.
Sometimes life throws something unexpected at you. It can be a letter, it can be a parcel, or it can be a chance phone call. And a few days ago, I received such a phone call from another journalist. The conversation we had took me back many years, to 2008 in fact, and to a story that I was covering at the time. But it was only later, when I dug deeper into the UK Column files, that I realised the importance of a story that we covered many, many years ago. And I believe that that story is a significant part of the jigsaw in obtaining justice for Lucy Letby. So for our audience today and the wider audience for UK Column, please join us on Monday, the 3rd of February at 1 p.m, where we will be revealing what that case was, what our research was many years ago, and why we believe it holds a key part of the jigsaw for obtaining justice for Lucy Letby. Join us then. Thank you.
Okay, so do join us at 1 p.m. on Monday for during the news program, of course. But that is going to be an interesting exclusive. Now,